everybody? I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after just a banger of a game. I mean, how good was that? Billed as first versus first, two best teams in the league. That lived up to everything that it was supposed to be. I mean, if that's not playoff-style hockey in the regular season, I don't know what is. If you didn't hear the conversations that were happening in the Washington Capitals room about the Winnipeg Jets before that game and then after that game, if you were, trying to, let's just put it this way. It's a little bit of a different take than you would get from Vic Ronas on the Jets. They, the Capitals are definitely a team that know and understand how good of a team the Winnipeg Jets are. 2 games between these two behemoths that go to overtime. You know how I feel about overtime. It was interesting in the Washington Capitals dressing room afterwards. They get that too, right? Like this is, an artificial situation. That's not going to mean anything soon enough, but the Jets have done a good job with those artificial situations. I think personally, when it comes to the overtime goal, these are details, right? It's the Jets realizing that, getting the puck up ice as quick as they can when they catch another team, not paying the most attention, and boom, it's in the back of that. That's how you win that game. That's how you get the extra point. Jets not able to close the gap entirely, still 1 point behind the Capitals with a game in hand. But I think for the most part, they've done their part when it comes to trying to reel in the Washington Capitals for that first overall spot in that President's Trophy. But what was impressed me in this game, and I'd asked this afterwards, and I thought Spencer Carberry gave just a phenomenal answer. And we are going to have to, let's write it down. We're going to have to talk about Spencer Carberry and Scott Arneal as the Jack Adams candidates out there, because there's a good conversation to be had in there. But just the fact that, if you notice, so much of that game was rugby scrums. How many times did a player get the puck knocked off his stick and then he'd kick it up with his skates and then it would be turned over, and then the same thing would happen and the Jets player would have it knocked off their stick and they kick it up. It was like there was so much reason to be frustrated out there. And I asked Spencer Carberry about how he felt his team had played when it came to the style of game that can really, really frustrate people. Because I've said this in the past, when you're able to steal any team, but we've seen this happen before in the past with the Winnipeg Jets, when they get their flow stolen, they haven't responded well to it in the past. I thought both teams responded really well to having their flow stolen. And Spencer Carberry said something that I think was actually very explanatory of the Winnipeg Jets' past iterations of the team that looked like they were going somewhere and then all of a sudden seemed to get halted. And what he'd said was, his team, he with his players had worked on that all year, where they're going to play good teams. And this is what games against really good teams look like. And in those games, what he's tried to teach his players is not to crack. And he said that's what typically happens when you get two good teams playing against each other. They go, and it's that kind of game, and it's frustrating, and you don't get to skate free-flowing, and you don't get to make those passes that you want to make. And what happens is eventually teams crack. They stop doing all the right things over and over and over again, like I've talked about the Winnipeg Jets doing. Spencer Carberry thinks it's one of the things that his team does very well. He thought they did a good job of it tonight. This, to me, is why you should have a lot of belief in the Winnipeg Jets, I think, heading into the playoffs, because they're a team this year from that kind of perspective. Maybe we've been looking for what's different between this team potentially and past Jets teams. Maybe what we are seeing here is a team that in the past, when they can roll on you, they'll roll on you and they look dominant and everything's great. But then when they can't roll on you and when that rhythm is interrupted, they crack. This Winnipeg Jets team doesn't crack. On this night, I know Spencer Carberry said his team, he didn't really felt like they cracked, but that overtime goal, that's a crack, right? That's them making a mistake. That last goal that Mason Appleton scores with 10 seconds left, we'll get into it, but to me, that's a crack. Whereas the other goals that are scored against the Winnipeg Jets, I maybe the first one, Maybe the first one is a crack, but essentially this is a game of two teams that they made very little mistakes here tonight, gave very little up to each other, challenged each other for every puck, every moment on the ice. And regardless of whether this game is won in 3-on-3 overtime, I don't know how this game turns out in 5-on-5 overtime playoff style. Maybe we'll get to find out in June. Wouldn't that be something? But I'll tell you this. I thought that for the most part, these two teams played each other to an absolute, as hard as they could go, draw. And just the mistakes were very, very few. This is the style of game I think that you should walk away believing in the Winnipeg Jets and what they could potentially do in the playoffs. Because I'll say this, there were a lot of people who were kind of talking to me about they thought the Jets really hadn't hit their stride since Four Nations. I wanted to wait until this game because I know people were talking about the Vancouver game and then they were talking about the Buffalo game. And what I wanted to see is what I've seen mostly from the Jets throughout this year is games like this they show up for and they play the right way. This is exactly how you would have wanted the Winnipeg Jets to play this game. They arrived for it. They played extremely well in it. I think this is transferable to the playoffs. This is a team now that knows how to rise to the moment, rise to the occasion when it is demanded of them, and they've done so consistently this year. This, to me, is a believe in the Winnipeg Jets being a different team in the playoffs type of game. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Ken, folks. Ken is already pouring in here. Corey May says, happy birthday, Kenny. Bring the birthday boy in, says Mary Jane. Happy birthday to Ken. His 50th birthday. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's Ken wearing his birthday suit right there. A new getup from the folks down at Vittorio Rossi, which of course looks like $1 million. I mean, hey, you only turn 50 once. If you're lucky, you only turn 50 once, or you get to turn 50. And you absolutely went to the right place to make sure you looked like this was a celebration to be had. Ken went on down to Vittorio Rossi, got yourself some new threads, which you'll be debuting. Well, you're debuting this one. You'll debut more on the show. You want to do the same thing, folks. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, how you doing on this 50th birthday first and most importantly?
Oh, buddy, doing great. Thanks. Thanks for asking. Been a fun day, surrounded by people we enjoy being around and doing exactly what we like to be doing. Yes, I realized I had been in vacation mode, but I was eager to get back to work. And what a day getting back to work. Just a lot of fun here overall. Fortunate to have dinner with my dad and Yvonne and Stacy before the game. And walked over and just, you could tell, Sean, it was again, I don't like the whole that felt like a playoff game kind of thing, because it's hard to replicate in game 71 or game 32 or game 4 or game 81. But there was a good buzz around the barn today. I was over at True North Square, and people were fired up for this one. And, you know, a little bit of, definitely a smattering of red in the crowd. Some OV fans came in for the game for sure. A couple of red jerseys were from Switzerland as well, as Nino Niederreiter had some people in. But it just felt like a lot of fun. I mean, Scott Arneal called it a heavyweight tilt after the game, and he's 100% right. And again, a measuring stick, whatever, call it whatever you want. But the two best teams in the league by points and points percentage went head-to-head, and as you mentioned, absolute humdinger of a game. But yeah, doing awesome. Had a great day, and appreciate all the birthday wishes that were sent on various platforms here. I appreciate all of you, and yeah, feel fortunate to be hitting 50, and honestly, don't feel 50. Feel very young and fired up for what we're doing, and great to spend an hour with the people that have invested all the time over these last couple of years with us. And to those people, thank you. We just surpassed 600,000 downloads this week on the non YouTube channel, on the download,
Oh,
on the
on the
podcasting scene.
podcast side.
We hit a
Wow.
nice milestone there. So thanks to everyone who listens on that, all the platforms, but that one we had a milestone this week as well.
Not bad for a couple of part-timers. You're talking about saying you don't feel 50. True story. My oldest daughter, Charlie, I had to take her for a doctor's appointment today, and I told her that it was your 50th birthday, and she said to me, Ken does not look 50 at all. So that's from a very, very teenager perspective
Very
coming out there.
kind.
So that's good stuff. We want to hear your perspective on this game. You touched on it a little bit there, but kind of dig into where you thought the competition level was in this game, Ken. If 10 is absolute game 7 Stanley Cup Finals, where are we sitting? Where are we sitting in this one?
I would say it was a solid 8. I would say. I don't think that that's a
Really?
stretch. 7 for like 7.5 for sure.
I would have had it higher, to be honest with you, but go on. Yeah, I'll give my rankings later, but get at it.
Interesting. I mean, I think definitely an 8. Like, it was an A game for sure from both teams. Anyways, I mean, I think that game 7 as a 10. I mean, we know that the cup we covered together in 2022 only got to game 6, and that was a pretty impressive game. I don't know. I thought it was really well played, and I have to say, for the people who there's a narrative out there that teams aren't afraid of the Washington Capitals in the East, and I think that that's absolute insanity. The Capitals are a great team. They're one of the biggest teams. By again, I don't have the stats in front of me, Sean. We walked around that room today. It's a team of big players. They make it difficult to protect the front of the net, and they go to the front of the net at the other end of the ice. They have 4 lines of depth. They've got a bunch of high-end talent. They've got high-end goaltending from both Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. I like their defense core. So to me, I'm not sure. I mean, this is a narrative that sort of seems to be percolating, and people say, I get it. I mean, Florida Panthers are the team to beat, and rightfully so. And there's other good teams in the East. Tampa Bay Lightning, they know how to win. Leafs are a good team that has to show they can win. I won't be surprised if the Washington Capitals make the Stanley Cup final. This is a darn good hockey team. They're well coached. And you touched on Carberry. We'll get into more of it later. But man, I sure enjoyed speaking with him for the first time this morning. This guy's full of insight. The answer about one of the best I've seen.
Do you see what I was saying? Because folks, this is one of these behind the curtains things. But when I did that Hockey Night in Canada game last time between the Winnipeg Jets and the Washington Capitals, after I did my meeting where I had Spencer Carberry all to myself, I got a hold of Ken afterwards, and I was like, instantaneously, this guy's top 5, if not top 3 coach.
Yeah,
talk to in the league when it comes to insight, when it comes to the quote he gives you, when it comes to the information that he reveals to you. Just an absolute, hey, 9.5 out of 10 when it comes to, conversations that just illuminate and take the game to another level.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive. And anyways, and I think the same about the Jets. I mean, the Dallas Stars are an awesome team. The Colorado Avalanche playing unbelievable. Any of those teams could come out of the Central. And Sean, the St. Louis Blues are absolutely smoldering hot. They might even pass the Minnesota Wild. I mean, I know you texted to me, and man, they could, the way that they're playing. So, and don't discount the Jets. I'm with you. I mean, the Jets are full value. I mean, this is another game. I get it. The Jets have not been playing a lot of A+ games coming out of the break. That's true. But in the 2 biggest matchups they've had against Dallas and Washington, they've had A+ games. So again, I'm not saying they only get up for big matchups, but those are 2 teams that the road to the Stanley Cup might go through. And the Jets handled themselves incredibly well in both of those games. So that's why I continue to say I don't see a lot of concerns. I mean, are there things the Jets need to clean up? Yes, absolutely. There were times today where there were breakaways. There was a Connor McMichael breakaway. There were a couple of odd man rushes. There were a couple of things that the Jets don't normally do. There were, the odd turnover in the defensive zone, but overall, structurally, they were very sound in this game. They went to the hard spots. They were not, yes, Tom Wilson had a big hit on Mason Appleton, but the Jets did not get pushed around. They were battling through and through in this game, and so were the Capitals. So love the game and really enjoyed it. And I would say if you're the coach of either one of these teams, you'd be thrilled. And you'd also be thrilled to see 7 more of them in June if that's what both teams happen to get on the old magic carpet and go for a 4-round ride.
I place that at maybe an 8.5.
Okay.
I'm thinking that game is. I think I go as high as that just because that, like, it took both teams kind of and their tricks, like the things that they do really well to try and get this game in the bag, right? Like Nick Ehlers was phenomenal tonight. We should talk about him, but he just kind of used his backing them off with speed, going to those softer areas, getting dangerous. You know what I mean? Luke Schenn had his hands absolutely full with Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson had his hands absolutely full with Schenn. I kind of loved that play and like how that whole sequence worked out, how Schenn went after Wilson, and then Wilson, you could tell, was heading out to go and make something happen. So he saw Appleton. He knew he was going to go and he was going to hit Appleton, but he doesn't do it, Ken, in a way where it's like one of those predatory hits where he's like leaving his feet and doing something like that. He just knew that he was going to go out and he was going to throw a hard hit to try and raise the temperature in that situation, knowing that Schenn was going to come. And I'm wondering, Ken, we should ask Schenn in that situation. Maybe he'll indulge, but I kind of think that they were getting into each other's kitchen and they'd been yapping at each other before. And I think that there may have been like an agreement to fight in that situation. And that Tom Wilson went out and threw that hit knowing that would trigger the fight that he was then going to turn down. Right. This was a little bit of we used to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois being the cerebral assassin. Yep. This was Tom Wilson being the cerebral assassin now and opening up an opportunity for his team to get, potentially a power play goal in this situation. But I just think that the one thing that I take away from this is, and I go back to the thing that Spencer Carberry had said about, teams not cracking. Like, there was pressure applied in this game. There was pressure applied, but there was a mind towards defense. Like, I was almost going to spin the wheel, like take Connor Hellebuyck saves on the day and spin the wheel, and whatever you land on, that's your keg save of the game, because I really don't think that he was challenged too much in this game. And for the most part, I look at Logan Thompson, I don't think that he was overly challenged. Like, this wasn't a heavy lifting game for either of these two goaltenders. This was just a defensive gem. This was sound, responsible hockey. But I think if you're the Jets, you walk away from this and you think, like, these guys were big boys. And in the past, I think outside of the likes of Adam Lowry, there's a feeling that maybe in situations like this, I know people felt this way last year about Nichushkin going to the front of the net, that the Jets couldn't handle a big, heavy team. They showed tonight that they could. I actually thought that they were the better of the two teams in handling the big boys in front of the net. I thought that they had far more opportunities in tight than the Washington Capitals did. And that, to me, Ken, was something that the Jets needed to answer, because last game when the Jets took a lead in that last game they played against the Washington Capitals just started taking the puck to the front of the net, and it didn't seem like the Jets could stop them. People will remember it wasn't necessarily a very good night for Dylan DeMello and Josh Morrissey, who looked like they got overpowered. We didn't see signs of that in this game tonight. We saw the Winnipeg Jets, I thought, learn in this situation. I think we saw the Washington Capitals learn in this situation, and yet they were both basically standing shoulder to shoulder in the same spot by the time regulation hockey is done and we get into the carnival stuff afterwards. So I just think that when it gets to the coaches, how they approach this, the players, everybody learned. Everyone got smarter. This game was a better game than the last time that they played. As far as regular season games go, this is most definitely an 8.5. You know what? Probably if
right
we're
on.
looking at it from a regular season point of view, we're probably talking about 9.25.
For sure. And to your point, I mean, I thought there were some quality chances at both sides for sure, but the high dangers, according to Natural Stat Trick at 5-on-5, were 5-4 for Winnipeg. So it wasn't a wild game in terms of end-to-end action, but I just think that there were still some really high-end saves by both guys. Logan Thompson, he's got a little Jordan Binnington in him, Sean, to be honest. He moves around the net a lot. He's very, very athletic. And I thought he played really well, the former Brandon Wheat King. He's a great story, as we talked about, went the CIS route, or U Sports is what they're calling it now, after his Western League career, and has carved out a really good career for himself. And the move to Washington has really worked out well for him. And I'm with you. Hellebuck, not a crazy workload, but I thought he was really solid in a lot of regards today. Made a lot of good saves when tested, for sure. I thought it was incredibly structurally sound from both teams. And again, big change for the Jets since the last meeting. Luke Shen. I mean, again, yes, he turned the puck over once in the first period. That led to a really good scoring chance. Yes, but he also had another game where he had 6 hits in the game, and he was the person. Sean, we talked about it. You and I talked about it on the show. We talked about it after the show. In Washington, the Jets didn't really have an answer for Tom Wilson in that game. They had an answer for Tom Wilson today, even though, again, I love the game that Tom Wilson played. And I really like the game that PLD played. And I know that's going to bother some people in the chat room, but that's okay. The Jets did a good job of countering 2 big, strong guys. And Sean, that's not just 2 strong guys. I mean, Protus is a bull out there. And again, then they got the skill of Dylan Strome. I really like what he brings to the table. Fun game for both teams. I thought that Logan Stanley, there we go. Scott Westman, say something nice about Stanley segment is when. Yeah. Great game for Logan Stanley. And if you don't like it in the chat room, you better open up your eyes. This is pristine roofing wake up territory. Logan Stanley has struggled this year. That is true. Logan Stanley in the last 2 games has been very good, and he was very good today. 2 assists the other day. Yes, there were some stumbles. Hadn't played in 10 games. 9 in a row sat. Today, I thought Logan Stanley was very good for the Winnipeg Jets on the third pairing. And Colin Miller, who we talked about last game, needing to maybe pick up his game a little bit, even though he had the goal. I thought Colin Miller was very good today. The third pairing for the Jets was not a concern. And a lot of people had been having a lot of concerns about the way the third pairing has looked of late. So wake-up call is incoming. Again, not saying Logan Stanley has it all figured out, and it doesn't erase the entire season by any stretch. But he played a solid game today, Sean, in his 12-24 of work, 2 hits, 1 block shot on net. So there, wake-up territory for those folks who need it.
Hey, Ken's triggered it. It's time for the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. That means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. I just wanted to touch on something very quickly here, based on the point that we are making. They are absolutely right about this. Dorian Wassa case says on the flip side, and Kevin Sawyer said Miller was waiting and wanting that Mangiapane retaliation 100%, like the way that he goes down. I'll just say this. I don't see them as equal situations. I don't like the hit that he throws on Mangiapane. It's from behind and he leaves his feet. Like Mangiapane's really upset and goes after him because he feels that it's a cheap shot with borderline, I don't want to say intent to injure, but definitely potential to injure. I don't think they're equal plays. But that said, I agree with this 100%. Miller was sitting there basically sticking his puss out to be like, take a shot and come along with me. And it worked. So that was a cerebral assassin cerebral assassin with a little bit of more of a foul, I would say, in that situation. I guess but I guess in the end, the difference is Miller goes to the box and Tom Wilson doesn't, right? Kind of the same plays. Miller just went a little bit over the line. Tom Wilson was able to stay on the right side of the line.
Yeah, definitely boarding. I think it was more awkward than leaving his feet with the intent to hit him upside. Yeah, he definitely left his feet. I just think it was more of an awkward play.
And clearly before the contact, right? It's not one of those ones where.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not saying he didn't do it. It was something that was. It was, to me, it was more awkward and less like we often see a player leave their feet, like in the Rafi Torres days, like on a forecheck. He kind of got caught on the side and just, it was very strange. And hey, yes, he went down easily. I don't think it was as much of a dive. And to be honest, Sean, Mangiapane is fortunate that the cross check caught him in the chest and not in the face. He could have, it was bad enough that he took away the power play with the retaliatory measure. If he catches him in the chin instead of the chest, it's a major for him in that situation, which again, I'm all for guys standing up for themselves, but that to me was if that penalty happens in the playoffs, I don't know that you're going to be sitting down. Fortunately for Mangiapane, after what was a humorous exchange in the penalty box between Miller and Mangiapane, he comes out of the box and scores. So it's a good way to erase your personal foul and a good way to get yourself kind of out of the doghouse from the coach. But that's a penalty you cannot take in a playoff series, especially the later the playoff series goes, the worse that penalty, the retaliation is.
It was a good way to kind of highlight to the way those kind of situations, though, can affect games. Like, I'm always a big believer, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not one of those people who wants to see fights out of the game. I think we've talked in the past about how Adam Lowry has affected the Winnipeg Jets. We also saw how it worked against Adam Lowry that time he fought Anders Lee, because in the end, what happens is when he offers to fight everyone and Anders Lee steps out of his weight class to say, okay, fine, we're going to do this, that has the potential to work the other way. But take a look at some of the people who hit the board in a game tonight where it was extremely hard to get on the board. Mangiapane is pissed after what happens to him. He clearly is in the penalty box, and he gets out and he exacts revenge. Boom. But who's on the other side? We're talking about Tom Wilson and Luke Shen, but who's on the other side of that big hit? It's Mason Appleton, right? Sometimes these are the kind of things that, like, they just bring people into a game. That clearly happened here. I think it just made for such good storylines in the game. But regardless, just some of the things that I just thought made this a really, really fun, special game, and the kind of effort and intensity and kind of, mindset you have to go succeed in the playoffs. A couple, I wanted to get to a couple of comments here, but Tishu says Perfetti looked spectacular. Greg Johnson says Perfetti's game has grown exponentially from where he was in November when he was a ghost. I'm impressed. Jeremy B says, I love Cole Perfetti. These are absolute smoking hot takes because Cole Perfetti was phenomenal tonight. So those are your K&R hot takes, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. Hey folks, you don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They'll take care of it for you. Just tell me what you saw out of Cole Perfetti, because I want to talk about Cole Perfetti when you're done.
Yeah, awesome. Incredible effort. Really, really, really like Cole's game. One assist and awesome net drive on the Appleton goal. He got the secondary assist, but also did a really good job of disrupting the defenseman so they could not challenge Mason Appleton on the shot, Sean. One of those subtleties in his game that he's really grown. Perfetti, 14-21 of ice time, had 3 shot attempts. I loved how he got his nose dirty. He did not shy away from any physical contact. I thought that he was excellent on that line. And I know that a lot of folks in my timeline, or at least some, and this is always a reminder that X or Twitter isn't always real life, and it's the screaming minority a lot of the time. But a lot of folks thought, oh, well, that coach needs to get his head examined. What's he doing with these lines? Well, Sean, as it turns out, most of those lines were able to get something done. Yes, I understand the Appleton goal came at the end of a power play, but I didn't think that there was a lot of disruption to those lines. I thought again, do I think they're the optimal lines? No, I'm not saying that. And I would like to see a couple other things, including what we talked about. The way that Cole Perfetti's playing, Sean, I think that Cole Perfetti could give that top line an offensive boost right now. Yes, I liked Alex Iafallo's game, but the way that Cole Perfetti is playing with his skill set and also his willingness to win puck battles and board battles and use his vision, I think it could help get Mark Scheifele going. I mean, Mark's now gone 9 games without a goal. That's a long time for a guy who's in the top 5 in the NHL in goals scored. And again, I'm not saying he's playing badly. This is a guy who's a big time point producer and literally one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. And 9 games in a row is a long time to go without a goal. So, although I liked a lot of what Alex Iafallo did, I think that, Cole Perfetti's skill set might actually provide a boost for those guys. And I think that Iafallo would fit so well, Sean, with Niederreiter and Nemesnikov, who we've seen before. Those two guys have had some good chemistry together. So I'm not saying do it right now this second, but I think before the end of the regular season is over, and that is now 10 games from now, I think we're going to see Cole Perfetti get a test drive with that top line because of how well he's playing. Don't you?
Yes. But I kind of want to, I want to go specifically in this direction. I don't want to blow off what you're saying, but this to me is the second time that the Winnipeg Jets have played the Washington Capitals. And I thought that Cole Perfetti was the best player for the Winnipeg Jets, right? And so think about the last time that this happened. Cole was just kind of starting to come into all the things that we were suggesting he needed to do, and he was starting to show them. It wasn't at a point where it was consistent enough that we could be like, okay, this is who he is now. The chat room's been talking about this for a while. We're seeing him evolve. We're seeing him grow up right before our eyes, but this was his vision in it. Like, what's happened is he's taken that. Someone talked about his board work. His board work was great. He went into the boards one time and someone was giving him Niederreiter ended up drawing the penalty, but that penalty isn't drawn if Cole Perfetti isn't taking 3 or 4 cross checks to the back and battling in that situation. And that, what he's doing is because he won't go to the ground and give up the puck, and he keeps fighting for it. The player keeps elevating, and what's happening is it's like a pot that's boiling, and eventually the ref who's watching this is going to say, listen, I'm not going to let this pot boil over. It's Niederreiter draws the penalty, but that penalty is essentially, in my mind, drawn by Cole Perfetti. His vision tonight on the ice as he's grinding and not giving up a step against a lot of these really big players. Like, this should be the team or one of the teams, but it should be the prototypical team that Cole Perfetti can't succeed against, because these guys are just too big. They're too strong. And yet that's the second straight game where that team brought it, and Cole Perfetti, with them bringing it, was still able to, in my mind, be the best player on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets. He was outstanding here tonight. I think, certain things break in a couple. Put it this way. In a game where there was so little space out there, and I thought, like you could see in the game of a guy like Kyle Connor, that it was really tricky and tough for him to find space. I think you saw the same thing with Mark Scheifele. All the guys that you would look to, Cole Perfetti, I think, did a better job of finding and creating space around the ice tonight than anyone else on the ice. And that says something, because we all know that he's very cerebral, and he's got a great mind for the game. Now that he's kind of added in that grind element and that kind of willingness to kind of accept the hard areas of the game, it's just taking that vision to a new level. And boy, oh boy, the Jets are, I'm excited to see. Last year, when the playoffs were happening, I didn't think there was a place for Cole Perfetti in the Winnipeg Jets lineup in the playoffs. For the vast majority of this year, I think I've been kind of, bracing for Cole Perfetti going into the playoffs and thinking, okay, but what's going to happen when it gets really hard? Where's his game going to go, and how exposed are the Jets going to be if he's not ready for it? I'm telling you right now, Cole Perfetti's ready for it. I'm sold on it. Cole Perfetti is ready for the playoffs, and he's ready to bring the style of game he needs to succeed in the playoffs. Give it to him. His evolution over the last couple of months, Skylar T says, or Styles T says, Perfetti taking cross checks from Roy in the corner is what I want to see. Exactly. That's
$4 for $1, Sean. $4 for $1 on that stretch.
Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 for
there
sure.
were 3 in succession and then a 4th for good measure.
But you know what you never saw from him, and you know what I think you would have saw a little bit earlier is there would have, and I think you would have seen this from Mark Scheifele earlier in his career. I think you would have seen it from Kyle Connor earlier in his career. I think you would have seen it from Nikolai Ehlers earlier in his career, that there would have been a little bit of a pout involved with that and a turn and a look to the ref and what the heck. Like, now they've just got this attitude, and Cole's got this attitude that, like, I don't care. I'm going after the puck. You know, if it ends up resulting in a penalty, that penalty will be called. I don't need to turn and look to the ref to try and dig for it. Just the mindset of that player. Boy, oh boy, Ken, we should go out. You know what I'm going to start doing as a journalist? I'm going out to just be a prick to everybody, because if going out and trying to be a prick the way Cole Perfetti did turned into him evolving like this, maybe it can evolve me into a better journalist along the way too. So look out for prick Renny coming forward here, everybody.
Hang on. How about this zone? Seems like a good place for a payoff.
Okay.
Jets sticking with Cole Perfetti in the top 6, even though, yes, today we understand that there was a little shuffling in the middle 6.
Yeah. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. That's a good payoff for if Ken is hijacking the process here. Hey, he's
trying to help, but he
took the being a prick thing right to heart. Look, he put it into play right off the bat, folks. Like, that's a quick learner over there. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Okay. Okay.
Ehlers.
You want to go Ehlers? Okay.
Roll with it. Again, also
get away with
it. So again, Lions a little different. Obviously, we know the reasoning behind it. Was it perfect? No, but I liked what Nick Ehlers and his speed brings to that line. Obviously we know Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton like to play a straight line game, but Ehlers' ability to push back the defense, I thought, created some nice looks for that line. And, obviously the overtime winner is exceptional. Sean, I think you're probably with me. I know we sit on opposite sides of the press box, but I was thinking in real time that he should probably make his way to the bench on that play at 1:28 of the first shift of 3-on-3 activity. But as soon as, incredible on ice awareness, Sean, Nikolai Ehlers sees the line change is being made, and he explodes through the neutral zone. Exceptional pass by Dylan Sandberg, off the boards, perfection. Ehlers explodes through the neutral zone, gets an easy zone entry, and then absolutely whistles his shot past Logan Thompson. And, again, this is one of those don't do it, oh, never mind, good job kind of moments. It's a Lou Brown moment from Major League. Nice job. Don't ever do it again. It's one of those for Willie Mays Hayes right there.
Yeah.
And again, not saying never do it again. This is similar to when Morrissey at the end of that long shift went out and scored the overtime winner, but just exceptional job by Ehlers. Again, wasn't crazy volume, I think, today for him. He did have 3 shots and 7 attempts, 2 hits. I thought he was incredibly engaged in the game. Again, also not backing down. That's the type of effort, Sean. Nikolai Ehlers needs that type of effort in the playoffs. We know he's a guy who tries as hard as he can. He's not afraid to get involved physically. But for a guy whose playoff success has not matched his regular season success, this is the template for Nikolai Ehlers to succeed and have not only just a steady playoff, he can be an absolute force to be reckoned with if he plays the way that he did today.
What worked so well and what I thought that he was doing well and was actually kind of creating problems. Now, it didn't necessarily pay off for them in this game, but all the times that he skates the puck in and then kind of does that little button hook that he's starting to do now and going to kind of against the grain and against center ice, it works really well when you've got guys like Appleton and Lowry who are just going to go directly straight towards the net, because what happens is the defense already have to be trying to like handle those big boys going to the net, and they're not going to be able to get to Nikolai Ehlers in those situations. And what he does is he does a really good job of using those guys bearing down and then cuts in behind them to get to places where guys can't get to him. It's similar to what we see from the Jets in 3-on-3 overtime, where they just keep on crisscrossing and then you like create some space to get away from a guy. But he's finding a way to use his speed in a way that's not like skating really fast into places that don't matter. He's doing that thing that Paul Maurice said about him years ago, where he's like, really fast guys can have a tendency to skate really fast to nowhere. What you need to do is you need to be a guy who uses that speed to dart through tiny, small openings, places where typically those guys aren't comfortable going. I thought he really did that well tonight. Similar to, I thought, what Cole Perfetti had done. There's a little bit of, he clearly doesn't have that speed, but I feel like Cole Perfetti is watching what works with Nick Ehlers. He's learning from it, and he's starting to pick up some of his tendencies. But this is just a way of saying, I mean, what you're talking about, him jumping up into the play, that recognition, that understanding of his own speed, and how in that moment it's like, I can get here and I can get ahead of those guys, and boom, it's in the back of the net, and now you've won. But as some people have been saying in the chat room here, Nikolai Ehlers is going to get paid. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a player who is showing all the reasons right now. Like, you know how I've said in the past about certain players, it's like any team can use that player, right? I've talked about, I said that about Yanni Gourde when we talked about Yanni Gourde can go to any team and he's going to work with that team, because what he brings to that team is something that every team could use. Nikolai Ehlers, and I get it, there's been a lot of years in the past where he would, make certain plays or he'd be unpredictable. I think it's cost him playing opportunities, further up the lineup for the vast majority of his time in Winnipeg. Almost all of that is gone, and all that's left over is this speed burning gamer who's gone up and helped the power play become what it is this season. So this guy can help you on the power play. This guy can play with the likes of Adam Lowry. This guy, when he got an opportunity to play up with Mark Scheifele on the top line, that line absolutely blew up and exploded at that time. He's carried the second line for the vast majority of it. Nikolai Ehlers is a very safe bet for any team out there that is interested in adding, a wild card element to their team that is not going to hurt them on the back end as long as he continues playing like this. Nikolai Ehlers, and I seeing where Jacob Chychrun took the market, with 8 times $9 million a year. Boy, oh boy, that was something. Nikolai Ehlers is going to get paid, and he's going to deserve to get paid. It was asked here, what better way to celebrate your birthday, Ken, than to have a birthday headband edition of the Kenny and Renny Show? So let's do that, folks. Let's make it a Ken's 50th birthday, Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Let's do it. Ken, that cartoon is the only version of you that looks 50 years old out there, I gotta say. Hey, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out, and then we're gonna get into Spencer Carberry for Jack Adams and Scott Arneal for Jack Adams, the conversation. Get at it.
Sure. For those folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including our podcast. Also, same haircut as myself and Spencer Carberry, as it turns out.
There you go. Keep it clean into the wood. That's how you do it. Okay. Scott Arneal deserves serious consideration. Now, I know the detractors are going to say, okay, so the Jets went from, if the season ends today, the Jets are in second place. They were in fourth place last season, and they had, I know they had an 8-game winning streak to end the season, but they'd had an 8-game losing streak before that, and playing 500 hockey over a 16-game stretch is not good hockey for, a competing hockey club. So the Winnipeg Jets, essentially, outside of falling off the map towards the end of the season, were probably very similar, maybe not points wise, but to where they probably could have finished second or third for sure in the NHL, maybe even first if they don't have that. So if you're looking at what Scott Arneal has done, the detractors are going to go out there and they're going to say, this is a guy who, picked up a Cadillac and is still driving a Cadillac, right? The one thing that I would say is sometimes the very hardest thing to do is to put someone over, put a team over the top, right? Now, I'm not saying the Winnipeg Jets have accomplished anything, but what I will say is the things that the Winnipeg Jets needed to get better at and the motivation to get that team better at it are not easy things to do. What I mean by that is how many people thought that last year's failure in the playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets was going to break the Winnipeg Jets as a team. I can tell you all the analysts, the national analysts at the beginning of the year who thought that the Jets were going to struggle to get into the playoffs, which Ken and I were baffled by, if you remember at the beginning of the season. But I do understand the idea that a lot of people thought that the Winnipeg Jets were going to be damaged from that last season and come back, a lesser team, and that the loss of guys like Sean Monahan and Brendan Dillon, although they still had a very similar roster to start the year last year, that was going to detract and take away from this team. It's not easy to turn around and say to a team, listen, you finished fourth in the league. Everything was going good. You had this great year and everything just ended up being the same. What I'm asking you to do is just keep going. Keep your head down. Keep trying to get better. Let's get motivated. Let's find these things. Let's go get a coaching staff. Let's go fix our power play. Let's do, all these tiny little tweaks. Perfection is hard to achieve. Being really good is still hard, but you can get there. But being really good and then not getting the results you want and being like, that's okay, let's burrow down into perfection, that's not easy to get players to buy into. Scott Arneal has got the Winnipeg Jets to do that, and I think because of that, he deserves serious consideration that I don't believe he's going to get for those things. He should get it. And one thing he said today, Ken, which I absolutely loved, is he talked about that game and said, boy, oh boy, I sure would love a rematch later this year, right?
Yeah.
Hey, a coach that has the fortitude to say that team across there is super, super tough and hard to play against, that's who I'd like to play in the Stanley Cup final. That's a coach that has belief in his team, and I like it if I'm hearing that. I got to go to Spencer Carberry, though.
Yep.
Spencer Carberry, if you take a look at what they had to do, and I know the obvious thing is going to be last year, the Washington Capitals, and they're the only team to ever do this. They were the last team to book their ticket to the playoffs. This year, they were the first team to do so.
Yep.
But if you think of all the players, and Ken, you need to bring up the conversation that you had with him on what he sees in Pierre-Luc Dubois and what he's brought out in Pierre-Luc Dubois. But you have to think of all the players that were kind of on the scrap heap that showed up in Washington this year, that he has turned and got the very best results from them. Strome was a guy who's bounced around this league and had never really hit. Now he's hit. Ovi is hitting a level scoring wise that he hasn't hit in a long time. I mean, let's just say like his skills should be diminishing. Pierre-Luc Dubois Spencer Carberry has found the version of Pierre-Luc Dubois that everyone knew existed, but no coach could get out of him consistently. They found protests and brought his game out. Connor McMichael, another guy like that. Jacob Chychrun went from things really not working out and people kind of questioning whether this guy was just, a good player on bad teams in the past to now just an absolutely great player. And just being in that room today, Ken, how much fun that team has and enjoys what they're doing. Yep. That culture alone is great. I think Spencer Carberry gets the edge because he went and found a whole bunch of players that really should not have worked, and he's making them all work. So he's done what the Jets did with even Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, and asked them to be 5% better. Spencer Carberry went and found a way to take a whole bunch of players and make them 65% better, in some cases 35% better. There was just more room for him to get there, but most coaches don't get players there. And I think because of that, Spencer Carberry has the edge over Scott Arneal for the Jack Adams Trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting, and I get the argument for sure, and I agree. I mean, I think that, some people are going to say, well, the Jets were this finished product, but like you said, when you don't get the results when it matters most, it would have been easy for the Jets to abandon all the progress they made in the 2 years under Rick Bowness. And yes, when Rick Bowness was unfortunately, on the sidelines due to health and to the health of his wife, Judy, Arneal stepped in and did a great job. But Scott has done an exceptional job with this group, Sean. What they're done with the special teams is really important. Yes, there's still strides to be made for the penalty kill, but it's making some strides. Becoming the league's best power play, that's not something that's easy to do. I'm with you. I mean, these are the top two candidates for me, and that's with all due respect to Dean Evison. And if Columbus gets in, I get it. But I don't like the fact that the Jack Adams is turned into the who makes up the most ground award rather than who does the best job with what they have. I mean,
good point.
I think Spencer's done a great job. He is very deserving of this opportunity. It's easy to see why he was hired. And if he wasn't hired by Washington, he would have been hired by somebody else. He's going to have a great career in this league. But to me, again, full marks to what he's done with both the guys coming through the Hershey Bears system, the young players, and some of the veterans that he has rejuvenated. He's completely unlocked Pierre-Luc Dubois again. I spoke briefly with Pierre-Luc Dubois this morning. Kevin Sawyer was there also. Pierre-Luc Dubois is back to having fun. He's having fun the way that he did in his, I think, second season with the Jets when he had career highs in goals and points, which he's now 2 points behind catching that, even with a slow start goal scoring wise. Pierre-Luc has been given a chance to be the most responsible defensive player on his team. And today they put Ovechkin with him in the third period when they were chasing the tying goal, right? So he's counted on in all situations. Spencer Carberry didn't want to take any credit, and he didn't want to talk about the past about Pierre-Luc Dubois. But when I asked about how he helped unlock him, he talked about having a clean slate was almost too much of a cliche for him. But he told Pierre-Luc Dubois that he was important, what he needed to do well to have a big role on this team for the Capitals, and he's gone out and grabbed it. I mean, he's got 61 points. And hey, and this is not a comparison because they're definitely two different players, but Pierre-Luc Dubois has the same number of points as Nikolai Ehlers. I'm not saying that they're the same player, but he's having a great year. And again, I understand that people don't like the way that he left town, and I get it, or forced his way out of town to the trade with LA. But I think you have to give the guy credit for bouncing back after what was a very disappointing year for him with the LA Kings. And Spencer Carberry definitely deserves some credit for that, even though he didn't want to take any of that credit, giving it all to the player and his, incredible recall for situations when he's doing video with them. But again, it's the type of player that you can win in the playoffs when Pierre-Luc Dubois is an engaged player. He's an engaged player and playing very well. Just one last thing on Arneal. I mean, again, he's done an exceptional job here. He's also helping a lot of players have career highs in their seasons.
Yeah.
And he's deserving of a lot of credit. And I think that it's those two candidates and then everybody else. Again, Dean Evison's done a great job. And if they get in with the tragedy they had to deal with, exceptional job. But at the same time, I just don't think that you can overlook what Carberry and Arneal are doing. And you're right, Sean. I mean, the Capitals were team 16 last year getting in, and they're neck and neck for the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
I just think that, they made some smart decisions. Adding Dubois is one of those smart decisions, whether people like it or not. And Darcy Kemper's had a good year, but the Capitals have elite goaltending, or very good to excellent, or whatever. You don't want to call it elite if you don't want to. But Dubois has been an excellent player for them. And, Matthew Waugh was also really nice element on the back end for them. A couple subtle additions. So yeah, Carberry deserves credit. Arneal deserves credit. I mean, again, I'm not ready to hand out the winner yet, but I think it's a 2-horse race in that race, or it would be if you and I were voting.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, we got to get to the awards. So the Kenny and Renny OGs Johnston Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, it's got to be Dylan Sandberg, Sean, for me. There was a chance after one period of play that Dylan Sandberg might not be available for overtime to make the play that he made based on 2 ridiculous blocked shots, one with his right arm, one with his left hand. So that's just Dylan Sandberg doing Dylan Sandberg things. Like I said, it's one of those unheralded things that he does so exceptionally well. Finished the game today, Sean. How many block shots do we have here for Dylan Sandberg? 4 block shots. 2 of them were critical early on. That's why I'm going with Sandberg.
That seems low to me. I
thought it was higher too.
I thought he was subtly phenomenal that entire game. Like, you want in a game like that where it's just all about taking things away, he just did it over and over and over and over again. He did it calmly. He never looks rushed doing it. He never looks panicked. There was a play he made in the corner where he had one guy who was trying to lift his stick, so he's fighting that guy. But what I noticed was, rather than taking and moving the puck away from the guy, he baited that guy into thinking that he could maybe get the puck. And what it did, Ken, is another defender who was up ice from him and thought that maybe it was a contested puck, stopped and closed, and he brought 2 guys in, and as soon as he saw that guy committed, he pulled the puck away from the other player, just chipped it up the boards into a Jets player, and now that player had all kinds of time to get out. That is like a crazy confident play. It's one of those plays probably no one sees happen, but boy, do they make a difference on the ice. He was great. I'll say this, though. Luke Shen, to me, with Wilson, even though Luke Shen gets the penalty, what you saw out there is you didn't have to see Adam Lowry go out and do those things. And Adam Lowry, I think, on a line with Nikolai Ehlers, is thinking, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and make an impact on the scoreboard in this game. Luke Shen, still being great defensively, is able to not give up any of his game and still play that, whereas Adam Lowry, to a degree, has to give up some of his game to go play that sheriff's role. To me, it was just the perfect example against a really big, tough opponent that element that the Jets brought in with Shen is extremely important. You saw it play out here tonight. That's my Johnston Group. Got you covered play of the game, the Kenny and Renny OGs. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, your hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, honorable mention on the Connor McMichael breakaway, and not just because of the save. And people can argue, oh, well, it wasn't a good move because he tried to go 5-hole. It wasn't just the save, Sean. It was Hellebuck's ability to dust out the rebound, right? Because of the patience that McMichael showed in trying to be cute and get it through the 5-hole, the puck was laying there. Hellebuck makes the save, then scoops it into the corner. I thought that was really smart. But to me, the save of the game is the one he makes on Tom Wilson. Shortly before Ovechkin ties it. This is a sneaky play. It's a one-timer. Hellebuck makes it look easy, big, and boring, but his ability to push across, Sean, and seal off the post on what was a grade A scoring chance, for me, that's my keg save of the game.
I agree on your first, because it was the attempt is to make that cheeky Adam Lowry, move it to the side, open up the wickets. The wickets just were never there, and it was one of those plays where, like, I think it's almost you almost screw over a guy in the mind when you do that, because that player's thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to make this little move, the wickets are going to open up and I'm just going to slide it through there, and the wickets never opened, which means Connor Hellebuck never fell for what he was doing for a single second. And I can tell you this, as a guy who's been stoned by goaltenders like that before, it almost feels a little humiliating when you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm going to do this, and the goalie saw you coming from 10 miles away. It's almost a little bit embarrassing. But to your point, the fact that he scoops away the rebound like that is on the ball kind of goaltending that I think is worthy of the hashtag keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Sean Fingland. Sean, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. That brings us to the TCB lamplighter, Transcanada Brewing Company lamplighter. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I can't ignore Ehlers as a goal, even though we know it's 3-on-3, just because of the great pass and the great patience and the great read. But got to be honorable mention. We've gone an hour here, and a lot of people have been down on Mason Appleton in the chat room, and really smart play by Nino Niederreiter to get a cross ice feed across to the trailer, and absolute roof daddy of a shot by Mason Appleton, who had gone 8 games without a point, or first point in 8 games and first goal in 12. So honorable mention to him. But to me, it's got to be Ehlers just for the heads up play. And you talked about the calmness. Jets never had the puck for about 120 in that overtime. And at a time where, you normally would see guys going off for a change, Sandberg, perfect pass, Nikolai Ehlers, acceleration, and perfect finish. To me, that's got to be the lamplighter today.
I talked a lot about the Jets getting the bounces from the hockey gods. Logan Thompson and some of the players in the Washington Capitals dressing room had talked about, a lot of them, I think, thought the difference in this game was that the Jets got a bounce, right? I talked quite a bit over the last couple of shows about the hockey gods, I thought, turning on the Winnipeg Jets. I don't change my opinion on those things. I like a game that's played honestly and put forward. And so if I'm going to talk about me thinking that bounces went against the Jets in their last couple of games because they weren't doing the right things, this first goal by Josh Morrissey is a perfect example of doing the right things and the bounces go your way. Now, this is Alex Iafallo's goal. And so here's the deal. There's not a lot going on there. There's one player, another player in front of the net. Alex Iafallo is being covered. Ken, do you remember which defender?
Martin Fairvey. Fairvey.
What happens in this situation? You've seen this before. The Winnipeg Jets were really good at it, and sometimes when they play teams, actually, it was one of the things Utah did really well against the Jets this year. Their defense core watches what the Jets are doing from the point, and when they shoot it, if you are a good enough defenseman to have your man, but when the puck is shot, also be aware, step in front of that, block it. If you do that, when the puck hits you, it drops in front of you and you can just skate it straight out of the zone. It's basically akin to a turnover, right? That's what really good defenders do. How you take that ability away from them is you do things to make them have to focus on you. And if you see what's happening there, Alex Iafallo is moving dynamically and moving across so that Fairvey is paying attention to Alex Iafallo, and he opens up. And once you open up, right, if you are a single unit that is blocking a puck, it's easy to get in front of that. But once a player makes you react and all of a sudden Fairvey opens his legs and he's looking towards Alex Iafallo, he's not paying attention to blocking the shot or what's coming from the point. He's all on Alex Iafallo. So is it a bounce by the hockey gods that it goes off the inside of his leg, redirects and gets into the back of the net? Sure it is, but it's done. It's Alex Iafallo doing the right things to put a defenseman in a spot where he can't make that clear and obvious block and actually change his body positioning so that it can actually be detrimental and problematic for the Washington Capitals. That's what happened. The Jets do a really good job of this over and over again. It's why they get so many of these kind of goals. They're important goals to get, and they are repeatable goals, which is why that first goal for me is the TCB lamplighter. But it doesn't matter what I I think. Share with us your pick for the TCB Lamplighter, and you are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, you can head on down to their store, their restaurant at 11290 Kenniston, where you can join them in the tap room and go check out what's on tap, have some pizzas, have some great food, have some good times. I promise you will, because TCB is just an absolutely wonderful place to spend your time. That brings us to our Lamplighter winner from our last show. That would be Running Man. Running Man, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. You're about to find out, Running Man. It is the nectar of the gods. Ken, that's it. Anything to say? Any words from the birthday boy?
Yep, safe travels. And like I said, thanks again. It's been an awesome day. Looking forward to the latest spin around the sun. And we're fortunate to have the following that we do, and we don't take it for granted. And thank you very much to everybody who sent your well wishes.
Yes.
We'll keep it going. And Sean, safe travels, buddy.
Happy birthday, my guy. Ken is referring to the fact that Ovechkin scored, which means I've been triggered. So tomorrow I leave and I'm on the road following Alexander Ovechkin until he breaks Wayne Gretzky's record. So I'm off to Minnesota, the team I do believe the Winnipeg Jets are going to end up playing in the first round. So I'll get some scouting done in there. I will continue the Kenny and Renny show on the road, of course, but I will be on this pursuit for the next little while. Honestly, hoping that he wraps it up fairly quickly. I don't want to spend my entire rest of this season out on the road doing this. And there's also a Chicago Hockey Night in Canada Jets Chicago game I'd like to get to, and a Utah Hockey Night in Canada game in Utah. I would like to go check that out and see that environment down there. But regardless, folks, we will have you covered off, because you have given us so much of your time. We owe it back to you. So we will make sure that you're covered off on your K&Rs for the last 10 games of the regular season here for the Winnipeg Jets, because we appreciate you. And if you appreciate us and you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would hope that you would also appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going into this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnston Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. We will chat with you after the next Jets game. Bye-bye.